Hello, Patreon, and welcome to the DM chat for False Hope. We have just been on a wild 40K adventure in the grim darkness of the future where there is only fun. Ryan has GM'd his very first Genesis and Dark Heresy game for all of us, which has been just a true delight. I'm so excited to actually get to ask this rather than be on the receiving end. But Ryan, you put this all together. What was your inspiration for False Hope? Obviously, I know you love 40K, and I know you've been thinking about this scenario for a really long time. But what led you to the prison scenario? What led you to sort of the Blood Pact and the Sons of Sek and the Night Lord? What was the inspiration for our adventure we just went on?
Yeah, I always like prison heist stuff, and I knew I wanted to do a one-shot. I've wanted to do a one-shot for a while to just kind of get into the system, and it's nice to have like a pretty clear end goal that all the characters are already working together towards. I think that's like a nice way to kind of structure a one-shot style adventure. So I knew I wanted something like that. I also wanted it to be relatively contained. You can have a really interesting environment, but I didn't want to give a whole world where it would just be kind of an assassination can get really complicated unless you narrow it down. I also like prison because everyone's a piece of shit, and I wanted you guys to be able to have fun being villains without having to do anything that you would find like personally grotesque, where I was like, there are no kids, there are no civilians, everyone's a fucking criminal and it's run by fascists. Like, go to town and get to enjoy being evil in an environment where that's fun, and kind of play on the opposite side of, oh no, the bad guy has all the cool powers and now I have to hide because my gun sucks. Instead, it's like, no, you're the tanks, and you kind of get to work your way up through that. Also, I just like those kind of heist style stories. And I've always loved chaos because the layers are always, it's never a unified force. The Imperium all theoretically work together towards the same goal, and chaos gets caught up in a lot of shit. And I love the Blood Pact. It's a nice chance to get to play with that kind of idea, and the Sons of Sek and the whole Sabbat worlds are just a book that I loved kind of existing within. So it was designing a prison and thinking of all the fun, weird things that would occur, and then leaving the planning pretty open for like, what do you guys want to tackle, in what order, what do you want to get to, what don't you, because you've theoretically, between the four of your abilities and all the stuff, it was like, oh, you'll get drawn to the things your stuff will let you do. And then you can solve the puzzle in the way that you are wanting to with your skills and characters.
So if I'm not mistaken, this is all off of Dan Abnett's Gaunt's Ghosts, is where kind of the Sabbat worlds and
yeah, that's his book series. They're doing an expansion of it right now, I think, with some other writers coming in. For those who are deep cuts, this would have occurred after Salvation's Reach, but before the book Anarch, because they skip about 3 years of internecine warfare and cut back. So this is during that kind of internecine warfare period when they're both powerful.
Great. And was there anything that surprised you? Obviously, with a prison break, a lot of the planning involves determining kind of what roughly is available to the people trying to break out, but also determining what is already present in the prison. So what were the surprises? What were the on-the-fly changes? What sort of stuff did you encounter as a GM?
I mean, I'm always comfortable riffing. The whole like Flamer and the Burner Boys and that whole like gang interspersion, that was all completely improvised. I hadn't factored in the possibility of second gangs, but it was really fun to get to kind of play through that. I didn't really have an idea for what would happen in the medical room. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that I left myself room for, just like, oh, we'll see what you guys want to do as a demonologist or a blood mage. It's kind of loosey-goosey what you can. Some of the bigger stuff I knew, like I had a rough idea of, I kind of wrote out the idea of who was in what room in the prison on a regular day. And then I was like, I will play within this very liberally, depending on who's called security, how would they arm themselves, just to try to make sure that there were obvious consequences. Like, oh, if you attack the barracks, there's going to be fewer guys, but they'll have been able to get into the armory, so they'll all have scarier shit. So consequences like that kind of structured through the adventure. And I wasn't entirely sure how the keys would work until I got in and started playing around a little more readily.
Excellent. So fellow players, do you have any questions for Ryan based on the scenario we've just played through, the inspiration, moments you're curious about, things we might have missed, or things that were surprising and delightful to you that you just want more info on?
Yeah,
Yeah, go for it, Del.
Sure. I was gonna say, I just loved that the spooky box man was a space marine, and like everything about that, like where did you even start thinking of that? Because it was just, it ended up being such a cool thing and a cool ending, but like completely not what I expected to be in it at all.
Yeah, I knew I liked the idea of like the big scary heavy in the basement, which goes back to like I think the iteration that I'd seen most recently was like Deadpool or something, where like the kid goes to the basement, just makes friends with the biggest, scariest monster. And I was like, oh, I like that. I think they'd move high value targets through, and like the idea of having a scary prisoner. And then I was debating, is it a really big mutant? But I was like, no, I kept coming back to Space Marine. And then I knew you had the Demonologist, and I knew the Astropath was there, and I was like, what would they want to protect? And there's a really cool Night Lords book talking about like one of the Night Lords that got lost in the warp and then came back. And he's like, why the fuck is everyone obsessed with the warp? I hate this shit. And I was like, that feels very Night Lords to me. So I was like, no, it's a fun target. Also, we haven't dealt with Space Marines in terribly much of our 40K stuff. So I wanted it to be something that was ultra high powered in a way a Space Marine should be, but not somebody that was either going to turn around and kill you right away or solve your whole mission for you. It was like, no, this is what Space Marines are, especially Chaos Space Marines. It's like, this is what I want, fuck you. And you don't really have negotiating power, you just hope for a short-term alliance. So I like the Night Lords as a spooky bad guy version of things, and they were the strongest justification for having a non-psyker Chaos Marine.
Just following up on that, I've always loved the idea of like the Space Marine out of armor, because I think with 40K particularly, even just the visual language of 40K is so focused on Marines in full armor with their helmets off inexplicably. But beyond that, it's like full armor all the time, forever. And there's something so fun about give me my armor. And it's that classic, like Bruce Wayne being like, I got to get to the bat, or Tony Stark being like, I just need to find an Iron Man suit. The second I have the Iron Man suit, game over for all involved. Till then, yeah, sure, reluctantly I will take your help, was a super fun scenario to encounter a Space Marine in. That wasn't just like, I'm better than you, behold. It was super great to just be like, oh right, and he's still scary, but we know he's gonna get scarier in like 5.
And I hadn't planned the deal either. I was just like, oh, he wants his armor, so they could probably work around that, but I don't know what he's gonna say.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, was the Space Marine were you always gonna find a way to bring him out?
Maybe not. It would depend. If you hadn't looked into it, I probably would have just left him in the box. Like you could have just moved on and not gone there. If you dropped him, oh baby, that motherfucker can climb real fast as a Night Lord. So it was like you guys would have had a real bad fucking time, because even a Space Marine out of armor is goddamn terrifying. Like that probably would have been, in a structural sense, that probably would have been your nemesis. I may have actually dropped the Sons of Sek as an ambush and been like, the fucking Marine shows up. Deal with that. But no, basically anything was, if it wasn't going to be something that I thought was a big story point that you needed to know, I was fine with you not dealing terribly much with what was going on in the prison.
Cool.
Tyler, you had a question, I believe.
Yeah. Was there any cut content that you can share with us that you don't want to, use for later or anything like that? Is there anything any opportunities that had to kind of be set aside for time, or because the choices we were making were no longer congruous with that sort of story event taking place, or anything like that?
The only stuff that didn't really get through much, there was a version where if you'd gone after the Preacher, you could have got the Archoflagellant, and there actually were 2 of them. So if you had managed to take the Preacher by surprise and then torture her, you could have gotten commands for 2 Archoflagellants you could have released to just be like, get us in the security room, and they just break down the door and fucking kill everyone. Like I wanted some of those that it's like, oh, if you achieve this goal really well, kind of like the Blood Wolf, you'll just kind of freebie eliminate this big threat for yourself. You could have killed TKO and taken over the whole prison gang. If you decided to do that, there would have been a showdown because they were expecting it. So there would have been a nice kind of ambush around their cells. If you'd opened the tech shrine, you could have really started to fuck with the technology on the first floor. Basically, you could have fucked with Alpha or located like, oh, that's where the landing yard is, that kind of thing. I said to Laura, you guys got ambushed. But if you had searched the armory specifically to see if there was a way out, that's actually the way to the officers' quarters and the launch pad, because it's the most defensible position. Right. So if you'd been hunting for the launch pad and found it, you actually could have gone through the armory and ended up behind the Sons of Sek and kind of ambushed the ambushers. But you were focused on your mission, which I kind of figured. The ambush was kind of fun. The other thing was, yeah, if you'd wanted to escape and planned a little more heavily for that, you would have had to find a pilot from the prison population and essentially do kind of an escort mission of like stowing them, hiding them, and getting them up there. And you didn't get to fight Blunt Lively, and there was
The
Blunt
dog.
Lively, the cyber mastiff. If what the fuck's the
Yeah,
name?
puppy
If
ate
Morks
him.
had got out, Morks would have joined the last stand at kind of the launch area. And there would have been kind of a final battle where you would have had to take them out and then deal with getting your pilot through. But for time, also interest, I was like, no, it's way better with this demon turn. Thumbs up to Dell for a really good time to kind of drop that and make that the climax of
Yeah.
the adventure. Because I had some ideas for what would happen if one of you died to keep it going. And I think the betrayal by the demon is so delightful. And then just due to nothing but pure chaos, it just decided the demonologist dies. And I was like, fuck. Beautiful. I have no
It's
notes.
so no,
It's
it's
just
so true.
The fucking dice decided it for me. I didn't even have to cheat. It was just delightful.
Yeah.
Nice.
And props to Ryan for setting me up for that, because I just followed your instructions literally, because it said goal 1, be Vesnia and do the mission. Goal 2, your team doesn't leave alive. So I just went, okay, check.
That's
Yeah, because
hilarious.
I thought kind of a demon worshiper in that sense. Yeah, the goal would be, okay, I possess her now. Because there was also the possibility where if you'd gone over on stress, you could have gone additionally over and then theoretically been possessed. But yeah, because I was like, what would a demon want out of this? We're like, well, we still want the consanguinity to exist because that's a win for everybody because they're undivided. But fuck it, I'll kill everybody in this whole goddamn prison. No one gets out alive.
Yeah, and that's honestly why I particularly was even trying to like protect all of them, because I'm like, I want to murder all of you.
Nice.
Well, so it's funny. If Vesnia hadn't managed to damage that arcoflagellant so hard early on, my plan was to literally just tackle it off the balcony. Because I think to Morgas's mind, it's just like, no, we can't beat this thing, so fuck it. So I was planning on like an early death. Yeah, just full on Dr. Strangelove that thing all the way down the tube. Which wouldn't have helped with the Slanesh takeover because I just would have been dead 100 million yards away.
Oh, I could give you a corn. You're the glorified. You're warped up enough. I was like, I can use this. I was like, if somebody goes, the demon possession is a fun offer. They don't have to take. That one's that one's the closest. It would have been a tough sell for Carl or for Flinch. But I had some thoughts in mind where if it was needed for healing or stuff like that, I was like, we might be able to convert some blood magic and do some high risk rolls to try to keep people in the game, just so that people would crap out at the end game. I didn't want to lose the team halfway through and then kind of get a little fuckety that way. I was still willing to, man. Fucking bad crit rolls. It's like, well, you're fucking corpse. There's only so much I can do. The system doesn't
Dark
like
heresy,
you, but...
baby.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, in the interest of time and also in the interest of getting to us being able to actually like properly fet you for all of this, let's any final thoughts from the GM seat on this, Ryan?
Fun. You guys are all great, and I like what you did. So it's fun to have people play in a world I made up. Thanks to Dan Ebnet, who really made it up, and then I just made up this one world. But whatever. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks, man.
Cool, great. Well, let's move over to player chat where we can actually say nice things about you instead of just asking you questions.